All right, let's call to order tonight's meeting of the Board of Directors of the Sacramento Metropolitan Fire District. Welcome. Can we get a roll call, please?
Yes, Director Sailors.
Present.
Director Stark.
Here.
Director Weber.
Here.
Director Wood.
Here.
Director Costa.
Here.
Director Clark.
Present.
Director Jones.
Here.
Thank you. And for the record, Director Rice and Gould are absent this evening.
Thank you very much. Director Sailors, would you lead us in the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We'll start off with the Metro Cable announcement. Our meeting is being recorded. The recording will be cablecast on Metro Cable Channel 14 and on the Comcast DirecTV UVerse cable systems. The meeting will be also closed captioned and streamed at metro14live.saccounty.gov. Today's meeting will replay at 9 a.m. on Sunday, March 16th, and again at 6 p.m. on Monday, the 17th on Metro Cable 14. Once posted, this meeting can be viewed at youtube.com/MetroCable14. Right now is the opportunity for members of the public to speak on matters on or not on the agenda. Do we have any speakers?
Yes, we do. I have a speaker card from Pete Spalding.
Wonderful. Mr. Spalding, welcome.
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Good evening. I hope you don't mind. I'm going to read from a prepared statement just so that I don't goof it up. President Wood, Chief Mitchell, just 1 week ago on Thursday, March 6th, we were awakened at about 6:44 a.m. by the sound of windows bursting and fire raging through the house at 2537 Rio Bravo Circle. Brenda Hamilton, who lives at 2541 Rio Bravo Circle, called 911 at about 6:46 a.m. At about 6:48 a.m., just 2 minutes later, we could hear the sounds of sirens as 6 engines, 2 ambulances, and several support SUVs raced to the scene. Within minutes, by 6:58 a.m., the fire was almost completely out. Thanks to the quick professional action by Metro Fire, none of our homes surrounding the site of the fire suffered any damage whatsoever, none whatsoever. So I come here tonight to express our sincere appreciation to all the first responders that quite literally saved our homes and maybe even our lives. They also saved the owner of the home that was on fire and her 2 dogs. We'll never be able to thank these brave firefighters enough. Naturally, we didn't get their names. We ask that you place a letter of commendation in each of their personnel files. And if there's any other ways that we can express our gratitude, please let us know. And whatever you folks are doing for training, please keep doing it because it works. We're very, very grateful. And our letter is signed by about 5 of us. My name is Pete Spalding at 2531 Rio Bravo Circle. But our Cardenas on Wausau Way, Brenda Hamilton, Rio Bravo Circle, Dr. Lisa Merritt and Amara Merritt at 9261 Wausau Way, and Adriana and Michael Torno at 9257 Wausau Way are also signers to this letter. So we will never be able to say thank you enough to you and the firefighters. I think they were from Station 62 on Bradshaw. But thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Spalding. Appreciate you coming and letting our people know the appreciation. Do we have any comments from the board?
Mm-hmm. And any attendees online, if you wish to speak, please use the raise your hand feature.
I do have a comment from Director Jones over to my left.
Yeah.
I wanted to thank Mr. Spalding and the neighbors for coming forward and giving such a generous thank you to Metro Fire. Full disclosure, Pete and I are community friends and do a lot together within our larger community. And on behalf of Metro Fire, again, I would like to say thank you very much for sharing your thank you.
Thank you very much again. We'll move on to the consent calendar. Anybody have any questions on the consent calendar? I'll take a motion.
Make the motion, please. Second.
Got a motion and a second. Can we get the roll call, please?
Yes, Director Sailors,
Aye.
Director Stark,
Aye.
Director Clark, Director Jones,
Aye.
Director Weber.
Aye.
Director Costa
Aye.
and President Wood.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
All right, we'll move on now to presentation items, strategic planning, building a better Metro Fire. Jeff, welcome.
Thank you, President Wood, and good evening, directors. Just a second here to pull up the presentation. So this comes about from a conversation that I had with President Wood several weeks ago. Excuse me. The intent here is to bring the board up to speed on some of the strategic planning efforts that we've been doing behind the scenes. And instead of doing that in a large Saturday type presentation, all day event, we want to break it up into a series of smaller presentations, 10 or 15 minutes or so, relative to other presentations that you'll see through the course of the board's business. So really, that's the objective here. Some of the goals. Got a bit of a delay here, Santiago. I think this happened last week. There we go. Some of the goals for the presentation is to provide context for the board. You have received a number of presentations over the last 18 months and will continue to receive presentations. Really, our job is to provide context and how those presentations relate to the board strategic plan, the fire chief priorities, and so forth. The second piece that we'd like to do is establish a new framework for strategic planning. The board is now very familiar with our strategic annual process. What we want to do is a deeper dive into how the work will be done moving forward and what some of those best practices are. The third component, and probably the biggest part of my presentation tonight, is a focus on reporting and communications. We need to improve our telling our story. We need to do it for the board. We need to do it for the membership. We need to do it for our community. So the best way for us to do that as it stands is tell the story in order and then tie it to the bigger picture that we're trying to achieve. So a significant part of this will be tied to better reporting and communications. And finally, this is all in preparation for a new board strategic plan. We're wrapping up year 5 with our efforts on the existing board presentation dating back to 2020. So as we wrap this one up, we wanted to set the stage for what the next one will look like. I think President Wood, we talked about early next year, potentially for starting that work. So to jump straight into the strategic planning framework that I referenced, we have been working on best practices and trying to figure out what's going to work for Metro Fire moving forward. We are working with a consultant, ICS, that specializes in strategic planning, but also communications, taking a look at tech industry, private business, and what from those industries has been successful in transitioning those practices to local government, and been able to engage them on what they are seeing with some of their other clients and what will be helpful for Metro Fire moving forward. So I do want to take you through this process very quickly. It obviously all starts with the board strategic plan. It's that 5-year plan. We like to call this our North Star. Whatever we do and what we're trying to do to improve Metro Fire, that's the aim, that's the goal, that's the context we're trying to achieve. Really, the fire chief's job is to have a vision, constantly collecting information from members, from the board, from the community, from managers, and trying to figure out how do we get there, creating that vision, communicating that within the context of the board plan, and turning that into the priorities. So the priorities are a 1-year snapshot. We understand the 5-year plan, we have a vision. How do we actualize or create an action plan for a fiscal year to start to move the ball forward? So that is expressed in those 1-year priorities. Really, once the fire chief has the vision and the priorities, it's executive staff's job to then build a budget, an org chart, and start to figure out what those projects look like and to getting to better. Then partnering with the chief officers and managers to actually manage those projects and integrate them into how we do business. So very succinctly, this is a 5-step process, 1 through 5. That is best practices. I will reference these numbers a number of times. So remember that it's a sort of an hierarchy trying to get to strategic alignment. So past practice, what has been happening at Metro Fire for quite some time is the board strategy plan, the vision, priorities, budget, and org chart, project planning and management has largely lived in the office of the fire chief or with the fire chief himself. Obviously, this is problematic. If we want to build a better Metro Fire quicker, we need to start to integrate and create alignment outside of the office of the fire chief. And that's what we are trying to achieve. I can speak from personal experience. In the 2020 board strategic plan, there are a number of elements that were assigned to me as the then economic development manager. And I essentially reported directly to the fire chief, and that work was essentially done in a vacuum. And then when it was integrated, it was straight into the integration with little awareness, probably outside of the board, membership, and community. So again, part of this is better communication and reporting. I use that thick blue line there to depict the communication gap. And very specifically, with this work happening in the office of the fire chief and the deputy chiefs essentially responsible for day-to-day task management, making sure this place is running, there is a big disconnect from where we're trying to go with maintaining the day-to-day operations. And that also creates a communication gap, which I will be describing over the series of these presentations. So current practice, trying to take measurable steps to getting to best practices. This is what we landed on last year. We went through the full analysis of looking at the board strategic plan and where we need to see movement. We had the full fire chief vision and what he was trying to accomplish. And we did break up those priorities into 5 areas that are consistent with the board strategic plan and 17 projects. So how we divided the administration at that time is really 2 pieces. And I have, you see on the left-hand side there, project administration assigned to the office of the fire chief. That is essentially Jill Guzman and I working together and trying to administer the 10 projects or so tied to service delivery, our finance enhancements, revenue enhancements, and our external engagement strategies, working with the project managers to get those done. Separately, the fire chief has been very hands-on with the other 2 priorities, being the health and wellness division, creating that division, and building the esprit de corps or the culture of Metro Fire. And I still note the thick blue line. Essentially, a lot of that is still happening above the day-to-day while we are trying to get general awareness for the district and the members of what we're trying to do to move this ball forward. We're still hit and miss with our communication strategy. So this is, again, one of our highest priorities moving forward. So I do want to then turn the focus to reporting and communication. Again, probably, yes, sir.
Do you mind if we interrupt for
Absolutely.
as we go, or you want it to
No,
the end?
please.
All right, Director Costa.
Thank you. So on the previous slide,
Mhm.
it talks about the fire chief's listening tour. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes,
And
sir.
the process we went about gathering information?
Yeah, so Chief had a pretty good idea of what his vision was for the district. He did spend some time, I think he called it the listening tour, if I'm correct. I'm looking, yeah, Jill's confirming. With that, he designed a survey, and that survey was, there are 2 pieces to it. There was a survey that went to the managers, and there was a survey that went to all the members. All of that information was captured and then written down and expressed in that fire chief priority project. 3 projects were then created out of that listening tour, and the board will receive direct information related to those 3 projects down the road.
Perfect. Thank you.
I'll pause here. Any other questions?
Can you give a brief explanation, very brief, just what the 3 priorities were that came from the listening tour?
Sure. From our management group, it was a priority to improve communications, ownership, accountability, and trust. So there was a working group to improve the internal communications relative to the managers. The one from the membership was pretty multifaceted. We took the comments and put them into 15 broad categories. A lot of that is being captured by other work. There are a few in there that we'll have to address individually. Right now, we are working on the game plan to address those. So reporting and communication, again, probably one of my biggest focus here. I just want to take a moment, again, pointing out a hierarchy to get to strategic alignment 1 through 5, recognizing we do have this communication gap we need to achieve. In the interim, I wrote down the chief house approach, very much being an operations chief, is starting with his own vision and priorities, then going straight to the subject matter experts. And I use the health and wellness as an example, working with coach and HR and Chief Peck, and being hand by hand and working towards project administration and management. And then he then has those subject matter experts come back in front of the board and give an update on how those projects are going and what the intent there. So very much kind of a 2-5-4 communication strategy. Also want to talk about Chief Mitchell and our CFO O'Toole. Largely, they're able to understand the vision and priorities, create alignment in their own branches and division, but achieve that work within the branch. So in that 5 below the line, if you will, able to complete the project. My point in bringing this up is we still owe some level of reporting and communication to the board and to the membership that the work is in fact going on. So we need to find better ways to get it kind of below the line, up back to the level of the board. A big communication gap, which we've all talked about, is with the membership. Good ideas are good ideas, period. If they come from the membership or the community of the board, it really doesn't matter. As it stands today, that needs to come back up through the chain of command. And the chain of command, again, kind of stops with the day-to-day task management. So we need a new effective process to get the information from where the good ideas come from and built into this process. So Jill and I and Captain Hoy are working on a couple of tools to do that, and we'll be reporting on those moving forward. So finally, we do want to set the stage for future presentations. Again, the intent is to take this topic on 10 to 15 minutes at a time. So here's a tentative schedule for presentations. I also state the number where it lies in the hierarchy of the new framework. And I see Jill and I in the meantime tied to the board presentations, trying to create that narrative, trying to tell that story and get strategic alignment and tell the story 1 through 5. So while the presentation might be in front of you, might be at a specific level, and I'll use Jake's presentation tonight. He's going to give you an update on utilizing technology. It's kind of at that fire chief level. Moving forward, we need to be able to describe how it goes from the board strategy, fire chief priorities, down to integration. That's really our job. So that concludes my presentation. As said, I'll be back with future presentations, filling in some of the gaps, but I just want to introduce the concept tonight.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Appreciate that. Do I have questions or comments from my board members or from my fellow board members? Director Costa?
Jeff, you mentioned those communication tools. So will that be like part of this process as you're coming back to the board, just updating us on those? And then will you be implementing those tools throughout this process?
Yes, and it's kind of that continuous improvement, refinement process. We have tried over the last year. Some worked, a lot didn't.
Mhm.
So I think what we want to do is continue to talk about the tools that worked, but also create new projects, new alignments, new priorities to what we think better and next looks like. So that would be integrated into the proposals going back to the role of executive staff. We would prepare that information through the fire chief lens, bring it back to the board as a part of the preliminary budget to say this is where we want to go next.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Director. Any others, comments, questions? Thank you so much, Jeff. Appreciate
you.
that. Moving on, we have presentation number 2, Jake Whelan. Welcome.
Good evening, President Wood, directors, Chief Mitchell. I'm Jake Whelan, again, representing our Planning and Development Division. I'm here with you this evening to discuss how Metro Fire is utilizing technology to advance our service delivery goals, specifically how those goals align to our strategic plan sustainability initiatives. To provide you some context to this presentation, Chief House, Chief Mitchell, Chief Barthel, and I attended a technology conference down in Redlands, California earlier this year. At that conference, we learned about exciting and innovating technology that is on the forefront of emergency response. We networked with fire departments from across the country on the successes as well as the failures that they have had and how specifically they are improving their own service delivery within their own departments. Taking all of this in stride, I was speaking with Chief House upon our return about how helpful and productive conferences like this are for Metro Fire, allowing us to learn from others, research new technologies, and generally work towards getting Metro Fire to better. We wanted to share those insights with you and discuss specifically how they align to service delivery initiatives and more broadly, the board's strategic plan. Before I go into what we learned at that conference and some of the exciting prospective technologies that we're looking at, we should briefly refresh our memories. The 2020 Board Strategic Plan identified service delivery as a major priority with specific initiatives in best practices, administrative coordination, sustainability, and accreditation. Today, we will focus on sustainability initiatives and the need for a sustainability plan to add service delivery efforts. There are 3 projects, each with specific outcomes among our sustainability plan. Looking at this chart, you will see projects related to the standards of cover, data analysis and automation, and CRD strategic planning. Within sustainability, tonight we will further zoom in on Project B, data analysis and automation. Looking in at that project, the original scope is to ensure the transition from manual systems to fully automated ones across Metro Fire as a whole. While there are many elements to this, the foundation of this project entails refining and optimizing our data analysis models to run consistently, accurately, and with little to no manual intervention whatsoever. An excellent example of this is our standards of cover data processing. While much of our work in year 1 was a manual process, we took the time and the effort early on to develop a system in such a way that year 2 and beyond, all data processing would be automated and repeatable much more easily. We continue to refine and improve that model as we learn more and more each year, but by and large, that model runs on its own. We simply need to feed it the data, and it automatically ingests millions of data points to calculate thousands of statistics and variables that we use in our standards of cover. Continuing on this, we have begun to incorporate this kind of data analysis into our service delivery plan decision-making. Our service delivery plan runs off of the standards of cover data and is therefore automated in similar ways. We simply need to apply the evaluation criteria and prioritization rules that the group determines, and the model will yield us with a simple list of projects and rankings based off of the rules that we have applied. On that note, I am pleased to inform all of you that we are finalizing the inaugural Metro Fire Service Delivery Plan, and we will be presenting on that to you this coming board meeting, March 27th. Speaking to our records management system, we continue to automate and streamline our report writing tools. We routinely run automated reports that make sure we are operating at peak efficiency, complying with local and statewide EMS protocols, and meeting district-wide standards. While automation does include all of the points we have discussed, it also includes broadening our technology integration as a whole. Much of what we have been able to do has become possible because we are utilizing new programs, people, and cooperative teams across Metro Fire. Those teams make us better at what we do and make our jobs easier as a whole. Our recent success on this front for Metro Fire has been the creation of the DMIT, or the Data Management and Integration Team. This team is comprised of data experts across the operations division and is the first necessary step towards district-wide optimization. The group has been meeting monthly and is tackling projects such as a more formal district-wide request for work on data analysis projects and removing internal data redundancy. This is to ensure that as Metro Fire continues to be an industry leader in data-driven decision-making, we are doing so in an organized, calculated manner. It is also to ensure that the valuable work members of this group do is repeatable and understood by others, and that any two particular people or departments do something the same way, ensuring that we have one authoritative answer or data source. Finally, a crucial part of automation is optimizing our software and reducing redundancy where it exists. The DMIT is actively reviewing district-wide software applications, noting master users, and working to eliminate redundancy in software. To put it simply, if we have multiple programs, reports, or tools, we are fixing it. I will take this time to pause and ask if there are any questions before I move on to the next slide.
Any questions from the board? No? Thank you.
Great, of course. So getting us to what inspired today's presentation, we are actively working to ensure that we are staying ahead of the curve on sustainability, and we're doing that by utilizing the latest and greatest technology. One of the best ways to do this is by attending conferences and summits where new technology is showcased and by networking with our peer fire agencies. As I mentioned earlier, the Cal Chiefs Fire Operations Technology Summit is an excellent opportunity for us to do just that. While it is a great opportunity to monitor and test out the newest technology innovations, it is also a great forum to ensure that you are using your current software applications to the best motive possible. I can honestly say that for every cool new program and software that we saw, we were also lucky enough to catch presentations on platforms and services that we already had, which outlined new uses and upgrades that we did not even know were possible. These are resources that we already have access to in our back pockets, like GIS or incident command and control softwares that we just not have asked the right questions to. What's important here is that we are learning from innovators and our peers who have asked those questions, and we are starting to figure out what we don't know. We are learning from large metropolitan departments who have had success at a scale similar to ours, and also from those who have had failures and who have worked through them diligently. Let's get to the exciting stuff now. I'm bummed that Director Gould isn't here because I'm going to be talking a lot about AI, and I know he loves AI. The following are just a few of the innovative technology solutions that we've demoed at that conference and in the near term, many of which we're considering at Metro Fire, and some of which I'm proud to say that we are actually already utilizing or are on the forefront of implementing. We'll start with AI. AI is quickly becoming an integral part of everyday life and has major potential for use in SAC Metro Fire. Our team utilizes AI in some of our smaller tasks to automate and streamline our daily tasks. However, I already see a potential in utilizing AI for larger service delivery projects like those we're beginning on. We saw an amazing presentation where a presenter fed simple CAD and radio data into Copilot, which is Microsoft's flagship AI program, and was able to obtain so much information from it within minutes. By just asking a few questions, the program was able to completely understand and learn from that specific incident, answering questions like, why was there a delay in the second and engine response? How long did it take to evacuate the structure? And how can we respond to a similar incident better next time? I believe we can apply this to our own system, utilizing our own incident and standards of cover data. Once we've instructed it enough, we can ask questions like, where does the next fire station go? When do we build it? And what apparatus should we put there based on the risks? One last note on AI that I think is extremely promising is the potential for our first responders to use it in the field. Voice transcriptions and predictive text modeling can now be used to inform records management systems in EPCR data, which is the majority of many of the incidents that we are running being medical aids. That means if I'm on scene with a patient, I can simply voice record my patient assessment and observations, and AI will use that information to fill in the EPCR based on the information I can provide it. I can simply speak to that record and it'll fill in the fields based on what I've given it. If I've given a full, complete patient report, it'll fill it in. Moving on, circling back to my point from earlier on better using systems that we already have, there's limitless potential to add new data sources to our command and control software, Tablet Command. While we already utilize many helpful map layers in Tablet Command, there is a potential to add even more, some of which leverage real-time live data. For example, we can connect live hotspot data from NASA that is detected by thermal activity satellites. Something like this could update constantly and can be routed directly into our crew members' tablets, which could be specifically helpful on grass fires or aid deployments across the state. We're also utilizing drone technology. I'm happy to say that Metro Fire leads the charge on this technology initiative throughout the region and has already integrated drone use into our operational model. We are able to connect live drone footage to our tablets, allowing our incident commanders to make more informed decisions on fire attack and rescue scenario. This can be particularly helpful in scenarios where we need smaller size and accuracy that a helicopter would not be capable of, such as on certain structure fires or even rescues. We're also able to deploy custom applications through our existing partnerships, such as those through our ArcGIS service directories put on by Esri, much like the conference that we just went to in Redlands. This would include incident data dashboards that give us live information on incidents and relative trends that we are experiencing, pre-incident planning tools that let you digitally map and plot pre-fire hazards in real time at the click of a button, as well as fire accreditation modules that walk you through the exact necessary steps for fire accreditation. As this board is aware, the latter point could be particularly helpful because accreditation is the final initiative of the service delivery program and our board strategic plan. Last but not least is a technology I am extremely excited to introduce to our own personal workflow. LiDAR, which is light detection and ranging software, is a remote sensing method that uses lasers to measure distance in objects to create complex 2D and 3D images. LiDAR technology can now be used to quickly and accurately develop building blueprints, a critical task that is necessary for pre-fire planning and incident inspection. With just my iPad or my iPhone, I can simply scan a room in minutes and create a complex site plan that can be used for my later fire mapping. In the past, it would take hours or even days to manually draw a building layout. And I'm estimating now that based on the size of a building or a room, we can do this in 10 to 30 minutes, drastically increasing my workflow. This saves us valuable time in the office and also helps us to keep our fire crews safe and informed at new incident plans and getting things out as quickly as possible and make sure we're keeping things up to speed, up to date, and keeping people safe. Tying all this together, technology is critical to Metro Fire's sustainability in our emergency response. We are actively working to achieve board strategic initiatives and know the importance of leveraging new technologies and optimizing our current systems. As we look to the future, Metro Fire will continue to lead the charge towards innovation and improving service delivery. Thank you all, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks so much, Jake. Appreciate the details. Do we have any questions from my colleagues? Director Webb.
Thank you, Jake. I know this is going to be shocking, but a lot of what you said was way over my head. I enjoyed the presentation immensely. The AI thing, I'm with Director Gould on. It's a little spooky how much that can do, but certainly helps out in many, many different operations in the district. It's helping you out, it sounds like a ton. So thank you very much for the presentation.
My pleasure.
Any other comments, questions? Thank you so much, Jake.
Thank you, sir.
All right, we'll move on to our action items. We have one that we'll take care of now. The other one will be taken care of after closed session. So we'll start off and handle the resolutions for the fiscal year 2024-25 mid-year budget. Good afternoon or good evening, Dave.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, board members, Chief Mitchell, colleagues, members of the public. You do get a presentation before we get to those resolutions, so hang on. Here we go. Okay, so yeah, tonight I'll be presenting the mid-year budget for 24-25, and the budget is built on the most recent approved budget, which of course is the final budget, which you adopted in September, and includes 6 months of actual data as well as budget requests and forecasts for the remainder of the fiscal year. Jumping right in, this is the snapshot we used. Really tells the basic question of like, how big is the Metro Fire's budget? And how big is our reserve? Two common questions that I think all of you get, and I certainly get asked quite a bit. So let's see, beginning with the box at the top left, that's general fund. Revenues at mid-year, 285.7 million, expenditures 315 million, and net transfers into the general fund are 23.5 million. Those changes hold the dip into the general fund at about 5.8 million. So a little bit, actually a little bit lower than what we had at final. So, and one thing I want to note right away is that these numbers are slightly changed from what we presented to presented to finance and audit 2 weeks ago, and I'll explain why. There was a small amount of costs related to some captain positions we added that we didn't include, but then more significantly in this ad, this is why the projected transfer amount went down. There was more revenues, if you will, is because we received an invoice from DHCS that was lower than what we expected. And I could have held it off till prelim, but I just took the chance. It was updated information. I included it. It's a small change, but it does somewhat significantly, it does change the reserve. It was 11.7%. It bumped up to 11.8%, as you see in the bottom there in the salmon colored box. And then turning to the all funds, the box on the right there, the upper. So that's the big picture of all funds, of course. Let's see, revenues of 332.6 million, expenditures of 385.1 million, and net transfers into all funds are 17 million. So taken together, it's reducing the fund balances by 35.5 million roughly. And that's the big picture overview. Now, there we go. Jumping into all funds, this will tie to the numbers we just saw, but sort of a different display. This is all of the 7 funds that we have at Metro Fire. And let's see, beginning with at the left with the estimated beginning fund balance. So what you're seeing there is that's the start of the fiscal year, shows how much we had in those funds to start the fiscal year. Revenues is how much we took in, expenditures is how much we spent. Other financing sources is largely transfers to and from funds, and then change in fund balance is how much that fund balance that we see at the top gray row, how much that changed. You can see general fund, we started with a balance of 43 million. We had those revenues and expenditure numbers, and I just mentioned in transfers, and there's that 5.8 dip into the general fund, into the reserve. That leaves us with a balance of 37.5 million at the end of this fiscal year, projected in mid-year. And you can kind of follow that through. Maybe notable is the estimated balance for all of them is positive or zero. In the case of the IGT fund, it's zero. That's because we're transferring everything out of the IGT fund into the general fund. We'll take a look at that in a subsequent slide. And you can see the totals at the far right. Our total fund balances end up around 42 million. So obviously the bulk makeup of the balance is the general fund. The other funds are kind of what's left there, or we spend it all on IGT, but some residual funds in those balances at the end of the fiscal year. So now just digging down into the revenue, the next few slides are going to be on revenues in the general fund, revenues and then expenditures in the general fund. Let's see, again, 285.7 million. That's a $2.2 million decrease from fiscal year, from the final budget. And property taxes, as noted, are 213.5. So we just got a modest bump at when we updated this for mid-year, 318,000. Let's see, charges for services is where we really saw that decrease. So it went down by 2.2 million. Most of that was medic fees, which decreased by 2.4. So obviously there were some offsetting revenues within charges for services. The net was 2.2, but EMS fees went down by 2.4. And principal reasons for that would be the number of transports was lower than we projected. The growth of transport, was lower than what we projected. It is an increase of less than $1 million from what we had last year. So it did grow, the revenues did grow, but the transports that generated the revenues went down enough that we had some loss there. There was also you'll see the PPGMT number went up. I think some of those transports ended up being PPGMT transports and not EMS. So some of the revenue kind of shifted over to a different category, if you will. So that's the main reason we saw those medic fees go down. And then net transfers of the general fund were 24.5 million, which is a $9 million increase relative to final. So we really saw that number really jumped up a lot. I think there's a question.
Seeing any reduction in our reimbursements as a result of any of the issues going on at the federal level?
Yeah, good question. Nothing yet, and have been on calls and where that would probably show up, because these would be in the PPGMT and the VRP, because those are Medicaid programs. Obviously, there's 880 million. The House has proposed 880 million cuts to Medicaid. So that's all being deliberated right now, of course. So nothing that we can rely on. If there are reductions, it would be up to the state to decide, do we want to backfill this? So that's kind of the second wicket, if you will, we'd have to get through. Probably the best advice I have right now is look at the state's May revise and see what the state does then, because then you'll know the feds cut, if they cut, and if they did cut, how much is the state willing to make up? So that's probably, so we will cut it close, but we'll have that in time before we come back for prelim. That's probably the best. The information is evolving by the day, but that's the best I have right now.
So, but basically, what's going on back there is going to impact our revenues.
Potentially, yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so digging into the transfers in the voluntary rate range program and the public provider ground emergency medical transport program. So on the VRP, we did have revenues. It ticked up a little bit. We received a little bit more than we were expected, 776,000. So the mid-year net income estimate is 9.1 million. So pretty decent size of our budget there. And then PPG-EMT, also reimbursement for transport of certain Medi-Cal beneficiaries. We had some significant changes there. So we had an annual audit. Our annual audit finishes at the end of, finished in December. We presented in January this year, just a couple months ago. We were able to identify 3.6 million that was still in the fund that could be pushed over to the general fund. So that added 3.6. There was also an increase to the reimbursement rate for PPG-EMT. It went up by $103 per transport, going all the way back to January 1 of 2024. So it's a retroactive increase. We think we're going to pick up about 1.3 million of that this year. There's a little bit more, probably about that amount that we think we'll get next year as well. So it's going to take a little bit to collect all that back payments. And then, like I said, there was when I said there might have been some migration from EMS into PPG-EMT, that's at 930,000 there. So a few other things happening underneath there, but those are the main pieces that contributed to the increase of 7.9 million in PPG-EMT. Okay. Shifting from general fund revenues to expenditures. So there's that number again, 315 million. Expenditures are up by 5.8 million, a 1.9% increase from final. Let's see on the labor side, which includes your benefits and incentives, medical. It's 265.4 million, 5 million of this, 5 million higher than final. Service and supplies is at 45.1 million, up 812,000, just 1.8% higher than final. And the workers' comp reserve is increased by 956,000 from a transfer to the general fund. That's pursuant to an existing policy that we have. We're just in compliance with policy. We're bumping up the reserve there. And then digging into the labor expenditures a little bit further, so we do have some changes there. As you know, we budget all our positions as full. When we get to mid-year, we recognize that they weren't all full. So there's about 1.8 million in savings there, which is quite a bit lower than we've had in previous year, reflecting that we're filling a lot more positions than we have in recent years. Constant staffing, just the overtime suppression staff basically, is $3.9 million higher. The net of that, when you take out the reimbursements, is 2.5 million. And then total benefits, which includes costs like PERS and SCRS and medical expenses, dental, vision, and the like. Total costs of jumping to the total cost is 116.4 million, and included in that total is a set aside of 1 million to invest in an IRS Section 115 trust, which is pretty much the same thing we do with our OPEB, our other post-employment benefits trust, the CERPT, which is for retiree medical costs. What this budget is proposing is a one-time allocation of $1 million into the same type of trust for pensions, also managed by CalPERS. And then I mentioned that there's a and the workers' compensation costs also increased by 1.1 million. Also, there are some important staffing augmentations to captain positions. And then there was a reassignment of an assistant chief position to health and wellness. So those were 2 new positions for the captains and a reassignment. 6 firefighters that we currently have in a overtime type position with Squad 53. We're going to make those permanent positions and fully staff the firefighter pool, which was a service delivery team recommendation. And then other service delivery team recommendations pertaining to adding squads, medics, and private ambulance services are under consideration, may be incorporated into future budgets. Again, services and supplies, there's that $45,812,000 increase. Sort of the adjustments underneath that. There was a significant savings from the November 5th election, about 744,000, substantially less than we budgeted. So we were able to recognize that at prelim. There were also some increases, the ground emergency medical transport program. So we're still participating in that. We collect money for local agencies. We transfer to the state. We also have to recognize the cost. We're putting the money forth on behalf of the local agencies. So it costs us $498,000. We get reimbursed the majority of that. So it's largely offset by revenues, but it is a significant increase at mid-year. There's also the Ready Rebound contract. Insurance premium increases went up we estimated them at mid-year. And then there's some computer equipment odds and ends at $93,000. So those are kind of the bigger changes there. So this lovely image, you may remember from last fall when I presented on the CalPERS valuation. And let's see, it's called a scatter plot, and the district is shown as a dot all the way to kind of the bottom. There's a little arrow, there's an arrow pointing to it, and that's 62.5% is the district's funded level. So assets divided by liabilities at that point in time, June 30th, 2022, as it states on the slide. And what we took away from that is, well, there's a concentration of dots. Each of those dots, by the way, is a local agency. And so it's, you look for the concentration of dots. You can read on the left, the funded level is about, somewhere in the 70, maybe high 80s is where the concentration is. We're obviously on the lower end of that. We happen to be one of the bigger plans shown there because we're further to the right, but it does indicate that our funded level is lower than many of the other local agencies represented on this. So I presented on that in November, and now I want to come back and kind of give you a more specific framework to look at and a couple of recommendations here too. So jumping right in, I'm going to give you I have 3 slides coming up: pensions, OPEB, and workers' comp. And the framework for these are the Metro 14, which is a comparison we use for labor negotiations and other situations. It's just a frequently compared group that we use. So, and then I also added for 2 of these, Kasumi's Community Services District, because they're local and seem like another one just to throw in the mix. So to acquaint you with the slide, the left column is the percent funded. So you can see the columns there at the top. You can see the number. So there's Metro Fire at 61.9%. That's our safety plan. And then, you can read along with see with the other local agencies, it shows what they are. 61.9% is the lowest number there. So we are, of those 15 agencies, we are the lowest funded on our pension plan. And the average is that orange row, which I think is 74, it says at the bottom, 76%, I think. That's the average. So we're also below average. So in terms of the recommendation, I just mentioned this on an earlier slide, it's to initiate a pension trust with a $1 million starter contribution and anticipate that we will have continuing dialogues about making this a recurring contribution similar to what we do with OPEB. Now I'm going to take you to OPEB. So same setup, the same entity. We're comparing to the same entities. The structure is the same. You can see percent funded on the left. The levels of funding, because OPEB is not a liability, is a liability that's only been recognized for 15 years or so. Most agencies are quite a bit lower than they are with pensions. Where we are is, like you can see, we're 10th of the 15. We're a little closer to the middle. My recommendation is to continue to do as we've done for the last 13 years, is to continue to contribute to our OPEB trust fund. And then I want to also mention our budget policy allows that if when our reserve hits 15%, half of it will go to long-term pension liabilities like this one. So once we get to that reserve, I think invite us to have more conversations about, can we put additional amounts towards OPEB too? Sorry, go back.
Director Costa.
Sorry, quick question. So these three, there are recommendations already captured in the budget that you're bringing forward.
Yes, yes.
But you just mentioned our reserves at 15%.
Mhm.
So since we're not at 15%, your recommendation is these here. But if we're at 15%, the policy is half and half. Is
Yes.
that captured? Okay.
Yeah, it's half goes to capital, half goes to long-term pension costs like this, over 15%.
But since we're not at 15%, we're making recommendations like this.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Director Witt?
Director Jones.
Yes. Thank you. And I apologize for not being able to reach out to you earlier on this. Can you explain just very simply what the difference would be between the $1 million for the pension trust? I understand that as kind of a backup. Now, is that more, do we have more liquidity there? Instead of perhaps putting that, last year, 2 years ago, you mentioned the idea of just putting money in to pay down the overall unfunded liability.
Mhm.
So what are the pros and cons of establishing the pension trust fund vis-a-vis just paying it into PERS and pulling down the big overall
It's a great question. Yeah.
liability?
So the two options that I understand, one is it's just an additional payment that we put that towards the liability, that one. And the other one is setting it aside in a different fund. So in terms of just taking the funded ratio, either way, it's going to help it counts against your liability. So if you put it in that special fund, it's still going to show it's still going to increase your funded level. So in that way, that it doesn't matter. It also has the benefit, the Section 115 trust, the set aside in the other fund has the benefit of being discretionary in the sense that you can pull it out when you need to. And one of the things that we struggle with, and I probably should have mentioned this, is last year we saw a pension increase of almost 6 million. And then next year, we already know the number. It's going to be 6.6 million. So those are big jumps. And that's kind of hard for us to take budgetarily. It limits our choices. So if you put it in this special fund, you can pull it out at your discretion and say, well, maybe we don't want to take a 6.6 million increase. We want to take a 5 million increase, and we'll apply 1.6 over from the fund. We'll take that out and help it smooth it over. So that you'll have that discretion, which you wouldn't have if you just took the money and gave it over to CalPERS. Mm-hmm.
And then just another point of information, we had exchanged some emails on this. These charts, only a handful are really in PERS retirement fund. So there's a lot more that goes into the evaluation of these numbers. I mean, some are cities, some are special districts, and CSDs. So it's just it's a lot more complicated than for what this display is here.
Mm-hmm.
It's really a lot more nuanced, and now's not the time to go into the differences, but compensation, city versus special district, any incentives, all this kind of stuff. The whole picture is not really captured here. This is like a good two-dimensional comparative analysis. But if we really want to get into it at some other point, it really has to be a 3D evaluation of what this, of comparisons.
Mm-hmm. Right. Your options to change it are many and varied. And like you said, I think including us, 4 of these entities are in PERS. The others are in their own pension plans. So they have their own strategies to close the gap and so forth. But I will say I should have started out with that. The data source for all of this, all 3 slides, is the same. It's their annual reports as of June 30th of 2023. So they are required by GASB and by CPA standards to present the information the same way. So in that, we are getting a fair comparison in that way, but I understand there are a lot of nuances underneath that are not covered in 3 slides.
Yeah, just to draw attention that it's a whole bunch more complicated than this opens the door, but there are a lot of rooms to go through. So thank you, Dave.
And then the last one is workers' comp. So we are at 13% funded, which you can see there is about 8 of 14. So Consumers isn't included in this one, communities, because they're self-funded and they don't report this. So they, as I mentioned before, if we comply with the reserve policy, we add almost $1 million. It's $956,000. The reserve policy says that we should have a reserve to match the most recent short-term liability. That's why that statement is there at the bottom. And like a backhand calculation is when we add that reserve, like how much does it go up from 13? I have this here. I think it goes up to 16 or 17. It doesn't quite allow us to pass. I think Kern County is the next one, but we get a bit closer. So we still stay at number 8. So those are the 3 slides on those long-term liabilities. This I added. I know it is a long-term obligation type question, but I just thought it'd be helpful to articulate it here in this forum, because I'm pretty sure you're all getting this question as I do as well, is that Measure O has passed. And now what does that mean in terms of what funds are become available in the general fund, for example, because now that we have this other funding source. So this is my estimation of how that could be captured based on your decisions. Now, I will just say at the outset that this has a big assumption that you no longer wish to finance apparatus. Like you're just saying, after you're done with it, we're not doing that anymore. We got Measure O. So that's an assumption here. So looking at the chart in 25-26, we know it says no change to apparatus financing costs. So there it's 6.3 million. That row there just assumes that you continue to finance. And I just increased it by about 3% CPI. I just said that you're just going to, every year, we're just going to keep doing that, is the top row. And then the less is the change. It's saying, well, but then what if we stop financing? So we do 5-year financings, as you know. So those financings that happened 4 years ago, we have 1 more year to pay off. And those financings that happened 3 years ago, we have 2 more years to pay off. So you can see how it steps down. That negative number under the less row, that commitment is stepping down because we are paying off another year of that auto loan, if you will. And then it takes till 2030, 31 to get it all the way to 0. So that last row change with discontinued apparatus financing, again, it's an assumption of you discontinue apparatus financing. You can see with Measure O, if you will, if you're going to stop financing, you're going to gain $1 million in next year. Year after that, $2 million, so on and so forth. So it takes time for that to phase in. So.
Director Weber?
Yes, as we have talked about before, as far as that $1 million savings and then the following year, 1.4, putting those monies toward our obligations as far as retirements. We've talked about that before, so I don't know if it's your job to talk to the chief about it, our job to talk to the chief about it.
We can both do it.
We have discussed that, and we think that is a good way to go with those monies. In addition to your $1 million savings fund, what you were speaking about as well. So just want to remind you of that we have talked about that.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Any other comments or questions at this point? Thank you.
Okay. And that gets us to our mid-year budget summary. So again, the general fund bottom line is slightly improved from final. So we're still borrowing from the reserve. It's 5.8 instead of 5.9 million. And the reserve balance ticked up from 11.7 to 11.8. Let's see, excluding transfers, the change is small relative to final. So we just saw revenues drop by 1.8 and expenditures went up by 1.9. What offset that, of course, is the PPGMT and the VRP revenues came in quite a bit heavier. 8.7 million to the general fund. As I mentioned, we did augment some staffing as well. We added the 2 captains and the AC to health and wellness, and Squad 53 making permanent, as well as keeping the pool full. And the 3 slides we covered regarding investments made in long-term personnel cost containment, contributions to pension and workers' comp reserve. So we made those $1 million contributions to those 2 funds. We're recommending that here. And then lastly, just a reminder, apparatus financing anticipated to realize significant cost reduction over the next 5 fiscal years if you choose to no longer finance apparatus. So that concludes my presentation. I guess I do have a recommendation. And then, as I often do, I just want to recognize and thank the budget officers across the department who work on this budget and mid-year final prelim, all of it, as well as the finance team, specifically Tara May, Lorana Bedred, and Sarah Ortiz, who helped me lead that effort.
Thank you, Mr. O'Toole. Do we have
Questions?
any comments or questions from the dais? Director Costa?
So on PPGMT, you mentioned 1.3 million that they're waiting to get reimbursed for. Is that correct?
Yeah, we anticipate receiving that before June 30th.
Okay, and would be applied back in.
Mhm.
Okay. And then I have a question I think might be Chief Mitchell as it relates to the pool. So in here it says fully staffed. And what is fully staffed? On the-
Fully staffed pool would be at this point 24 firefighters that would be in the pool for backfilling the constant staffing that David mentioned the increase on. Would be 8 per shift. Currently, with the adoption of mid-year budget that finalizes Squad 53 as a permanent apparatus, we would be at 3 firefighters in the pool. So the plan is to, through the next 2 fire academies, completely fill the pool, which we would see the constant staffing backfill number decrease with those additional positions, which does 2 things for us, really. The first one is it decreases our numbers for mandatory overtime and brownout potential. If you use, hypothetically, if you took the information from 2024 and you took those 8 positions per shift and applied them towards our number of brownouts and our mandatory overtime, it eliminates the brownouts and almost eliminates the mandatory callback, which puts us at a position where we have members working when they want to be working and members not when they don't want to be working. And the outflow from that is the health and wellness piece, when our members are working too much, and the issues that we've heard about and made a priority as an organization to help address that at a significant level. For the first time in a long time, we'd be able to do that, and that is the plan. So,
Yeah, Director Weber?
So the 53 spots that you're speaking of, the pad already reflects that or not? Those permanent
with the
positions?
adoption of this mid-year budget, it will reflect those additional positions
Thank you.
as permanent. Yeah, we're running it as a pilot right now. So.
Any other comments? Director Sailors?
Does the pad also reflect the 2 captains and the AC chief for the wellness? Does the pad reflect that also?
The new pad with the adoption of this does reflect those changes and updates.
Any other comments or questions from my colleagues? I have just one comment. We've got a lot of work coming ahead of us with Measure O and all the wonderful things we're going to be able to do, which is going to put an awful lot of strain on some already strained people in this building and surrounding ones. It's my understanding in the last year, we've had 28 personnel requisitions that were reclassifications, either new people or reclassifications. And of those 28, 27 were denied. So we've got 10 and a half weeks, roughly 10 weeks, I'm sorry, until our preliminary budget on May 22nd. Want to just challenge, I know you're here as the messenger on the budget, so I don't mean to put this on your mantle on you, but I'd just like to ask that we go back and look at those 27 denied requests and see what we can do to help out, because we're going to we talk a lot about the stresses that happen with our line personnel, but we're going to blow out some very good people that are our everyday personnel, HR and facilities and fleet. And it's a lot harder for a firefighter to up and go move than it is a mechanic or a contractor, electrician in fleet, or an HR tech. There's plenty of people that will take them in this community and give them a very good place to work. And I don't want to see any of them go, because they're all extremely important. So if we can put that on the plate for the next 10 weeks to look at that.
Certainly.
Yeah, thank you, President Wood. It's incredibly important to recognize as we grow in the service side of the line of the professional staff and using the process that we talked about earlier and what we'll hear over the next few board meetings of developing the staffing plan and actually putting a costing to it to plan long-term for how we get to what right looks like is incredibly important as well. And we're putting a lot of effort into that. So we will take that noted and we're working on it. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you so much. So we can move on. If no more questions for Mr. O'Toole, I will start entertaining motions.
Mr. President, I guess we can use the little tag team thing, you know, same people, you know, to get through this. I'd like to move a resolution to 2024 mid-year budget for the general operating fund 212A.
And I'll
Second.
Oh, go.
Sorry,
no,
who
that-
gave the
you guys
second?
are together. That's-
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Got a
Costa?
motion and a second. Can we get a
Okay.
roll, please?
Director Sailors,
Aye.
Director Stark,
Aye.
Director Clark,
Aye.
Director Jones,
Aye.
Director Weber,
Aye.
Director Costa,
Aye.
President Wood.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Yeah,
Move on
2-1-2.
to Resolution B.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move resolution 2024-25 mid-year budget for the Capital Facilities Fund 212D.
Do we have a second?
I've got a motion and a second. Can I get the roll, please?
Yes. Director Sailors,
Aye.
Director Stark,
Aye.
Director Clark,
Aye.
Director Jones,
Aye.
Director Weber,
Aye.
Director Costa,
Aye.
President Wood.
Aye.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move resolution 2024-25 mid-year budget for the Grants Fund 212G.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. Can we get the roll, please?
Yes. Director Sailors,
Aye.
Director Stark,
Aye.
Director Clark,
Aye.
Director Jones,
Aye.
Director Weber,
Aye.
Director Costa,
Aye.
President Wood.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move resolution 2024-25 mid-year budget for the Lease Properties Fund 212L.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Can we get the roll, please?
Yes. Director Sailors,
Aye.
Director Stark,
Aye.
Director Clark,
Aye.
Director Jones,
Aye.
Director Weber,
Aye.
Director Costa,
Aye.
President Wood.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move resolution 2024-25 mid-year budget for the IGT Fund 212M.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Can we get the roll, please?
Director Sailors,
Aye.
Director Stark,
Aye.
Director Clark,
Aye.
Director Jones,
Aye.
Director Weber, Director Costa,
Aye.
President Wood.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you so much, Mr. O'Toole. All right, like we said earlier, we're going to take action item number 2 up after we have our closed session. So we'll move on to reports. President's report. I don't have anything at this time. Moving on to the fire chief, Chief Mitchell.
Thank
Good
you,
evening.
President Wood. Good evening, directors, colleagues, members of the public. Deputy Chief Mitchell for Chief House tonight. Chief House and a few staff are attending the Fiero PPE Symposium this week. It's actually ending today. The conference focuses on providing essential knowledge for fire departments to improve PPE selection, management, and safety while reducing exposure risks and maximizing gear longevity, which is directly in alignment with one of our high priorities of member health and wellness. A couple of updates and acknowledgements. I'm happy to announce the reassignment of Captain Mark Nunez. Congratulations to Captain Nunez for being selected to fill the Public Information Officer position. It's effective March 16th, 2025. Battalion Chief Parker Wilborn will be reassigned to the suppression area on A shift effective the same date. And the district would like to thank Chief Wilborn for his dedication and commitment while he's been functioning in the PIO position. I'd like to have Captain Nunez come up and introduce himself, please.
Thank you, Chief Mitchell. Directors, yes, good evening. First of all, I would like to thank Chief House, Chief Mitchell, executive staff, directors for putting your trust in me to fill this very important position. It's truly an honor. And to say that I have some big shoes to fill, I think that's an understatement. I think we all can agree that Chief Wilborn has done an exceptional job these past 3 years. And I mean exceptional. His dedication, his leadership goes unsaid. It is because of him over these past 3 years that I've had the opportunity to work with him. he's prepared me to be here today. And it's because of him and what he's done. I'm proud to be standing up here. I look forward to working with all of you. I'm excited and I can't wait to get to work on Monday. Thank you.
Captain, I came on the board in 2013 and Captain Michelle Idem was the PIO at that time. And she did a phenomenal job, but every person that's followed her has taken that position to the next level. So I have no doubt that you will continue that great tradition.
It is my goal to continue that great tradition and to build on it. We've had some phenomenal PIOs over since my inception here. And it is my goal just to continue that.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Any comments or questions from the board?
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Best to you, Captain.
Thanks, Captain Nunez. And then lastly, I'm happy to announce Battalion Chief Parker Wilborn is being honored tonight at the annual Citrus Heights Chamber of Commerce Community Awards dinner, being attended there with Chief Wagaman to support him for his selection as Metro Fire's 2024 Suppression Firefighter of the Year recipient. So good job, Chief Wilborn. And we're glad that he's getting recognized. So, and good luck, Captain Nunez. And that ends the report unless there's any questions.
Any questions for the chief? No? Thank you so much. Move on to operations report. I have Chief Vestal. Oh,
Good evening, President Wood, directors. My name is Jason Vestal, Battalion Chief, B Shift up in Battalion 13, covering for Chief Johnson, who's off this week. For the members or for the shift commander spotlight, I'd like to turn your attention to the three companies in the back. They're represented by Engine 29, Engine 106, and also Engine 23 crews. These are the firefighters that deployed to the Palisades and Eaton fire back in January. The first cruise that went out was 23 and 106. It was OES 382 out of 106, and Engine 23 went. They deployed about 8 o'clock that night. We got down there about 5 o'clock that next morning, and we worked for 48 hours straight, probably closer to 56 hours. So we left on the 7th. We didn't get off till the 10th. 8433 29's crew, raise your hand in the back, Captain Bear. They went to the Eaton fire. So that was the fire affected Pasadena and Altadena.
Sorry,
yeah.
Is it possible to bring them up here so the public?
Come on up, guys. Chief Daly as well.
Yeah, we can. The public can't see them.
Absolutely. Chief Daly, you as well. Yeah.
Where'd he go? Now we get that.
excellent.
So one thing that kind of struck me when Mr. Spalding was speaking, he was speaking about the fire from last week. Those actions and that initiative, the leadership of these crews took with them down there, that's exactly what happens up here. So the day-to-day effectiveness, leadership, initiative, each one of these firefighters displayed that, whether it was in Palisades or in Altadena and Pasadena. I can't speak for what happened in Pasadena because I wasn't there, but imagine if Fair Oaks and Citrus Heights were all on fire at the same time. There was, I think the structure loss in Palisades was about 6,800 structures. I believe in Pasadena was about what, 8,400, 98, about 9,800. So that was an extreme structure loss. What we ended up doing, what our crews ended up doing is after the fire front passed, our firefighters went in and kept the fires from spreading from structure to structure. So the value added, the property saved, for sure in the millions, many, many millions. I mean, I personally witnessed, at least with two of our crews, protecting a 4-story condominium complex where each unit was valued at 1.5 million. So if they hadn't done what they did, the initiative they displayed, they used every piece of equipment on those engines. So it was phenomenal. I just wanted to make sure that we recognize them. It was a career fire, both fires, tremendously sad. The Pasadena fires, I think there were 17 fatalities on that one. Devastating for those communities, but these firefighters here, tremendous leadership and value added down there. So,
Chief Vestal, thank you so much for bringing them up. Every single one of them deserves thanks and commendations, but beyond them, their families were without them for 2 weeks. So they all need to be thanked as well. And we appreciate the sacrifices that they made. So, but any comments or questions from Director Jones?
Yes, thank you. Thanks, and glad to see everybody made it back. That is terrific. Just a quick add-on to your point, Chief Estel. Director Sailors and I were discussing this a little bit a couple days ago, and how hard it is. Folks don't realize the value of what is saved. That's the perennial challenge for anyone in community risk reduction, the old fire prevention. What we're doing is saving things of value before they are destroyed. And that type of initiative to protect the structures, to get people out, the value of what is saved can never, never, ever be underestimated. So thank you. Thank you very, very much.
But if I can add one thing to that, one thing that these firefighters did on dozens, if not close to 100 different instances on this fire, there was definitely a water supply challenge. There's no doubt about it. As we were driving into, Malibu, I probably saw 50 master streams flowing at one time as we were driving to the command post to get an assignment. So 50 times 500 or 1,000, it's 50,000 gallons per minute, right? So when we finally got assigned into these neighborhoods, there were times where we didn't have enough water to do what we needed to do. They didn't stop. They were getting valuables, records. I mean, it didn't stop. Even if we couldn't put the fire out, these guys instantly switched into property conservation, saving valuables and things like that without being told. That speaks exactly what you're speaking about.
And another add-on, it's just so important for folks to realize. Oakland Hills Fire, Paradise, Lahaina, Los Angeles. Folks, these are wind-driven events equivalent to a hurricane. And that's what all these folks and everyone who responded to those events had to face and work within for the successes that you did have. So please, again, water was an issue because uphill pressure, any engineer knows that. But this wind-driven fire business is the real devil in this story. So once again, thank you all.
Thank you, Director Weber.
Chief, I don't know if you're privy to the conversations that a chief officer had from LA to our chief.
I'm not.
Are you aware?
Potentially, I need a little bit more details.
Well, it was just
go ahead.
How they performed and what they did, all of that. So
Yeah, I got a direct, so just so they're and the board is
these folks to know it.
Yeah, I got direct phone calls. I had good friends that are down there from past relationships, as well as a task force leader for 8433 that called me directly and said our folks were the go-to members of their strike teams, but also just from folks down there that recognize and know how Metro Fire performs. They were very complimentary about the high performance that they had witnessed down there and were getting feedback from. And so it is notable out of all of the response from across the country, getting those phone calls back and hearing from those folks down there. So incredible work. I couldn't be more proud sitting over here to hear about what you all did in direct communication with our strike team leaders day to day on what you were doing. Just amazing. I can't put it into words how proud we are, and to say thank you is an understatement. So great work.
I just wanted to echo Jeff's comment about communication. I don't know if the crews had heard that or not, but that's very important for that information to get back to the crew level. Because again, great work, but
Thank you for pointing that out.
Richard Stark.
I just want to thank you all for your hard work, and we're really proud of how you made the whole department look outstanding.
Director Sailors? No, well, just thank you for everything you. Yeah, welcome back. Thank you. Yeah, we'll get out of the way.
Yeah,
I'm getting out of the way.
you need the panoramic.
We don't get any pictures.
Oh, I know, yes, that's key, yeah.
All right.
Well, detail.
Moving along, I have word that there's no admin report or support services report tonight. So we'll move right on to firefighters local 522, Captain Scholard. Welcome. Good evening.
Good evening. It'll be brief this evening as well. Thank you, President Wood, Board of Directors, Chief Mitchell, colleagues, member of the public, and all the crews that just left. So I know they tried to get out of here pretty quick. After sitting through this evening, I probably have more questions than I walked in with comments. So I'll stay contained for the most part, other than congratulations to Captain Nunez. Thank you to the membership that came out to Fire Ops 101. Very successful event. We needed volunteers, so I thank them for that. A big thank you to the crews that responded out to the Palisades, but more importantly, thank you to their families. I know each and every one of them personally. I know a lot of the folks that were standing up here have very young families, newborns, kids of all ages. And so the thanks, really, I think they would agree with this, goes to their families, because it's a huge sacrifice and it comes with a lot of support from their loved ones for them to be able to do that. So any questions I'll take, but I'm contained. Thank you.
Do you have any questions for Captain Scholard?
Appreciate it.
Thank you much. All right, moving on. Committee and delegate reports. Executive Committee, we have no report. Communication Center, JPA, Deputy Chief Fiorica.
Good evening, President Wood, members of the board, Chief Mitchell, and colleagues and guests. Interim Deputy Chief Joe Fiorica from the admin branch. The Comm Center JPA board last met 2 days ago on March 11th in these chambers. One of the items highlighted during that meeting was that staff from the Comm Center provided a presentation on their new core values and mission statement. The core values and mission statement were updated with significant input by their membership. The new core values and mission statement more accurately reflect who they are, what they stand for, and how they serve the community with dedication and excellence. There were no other reportable actions. The next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, March 25th at 9 a.m. in these chambers. In a report, unless there's any questions.
Any questions for Chief Fiorica? Thank you much.
Thank you.
Moving on to the Finance and Audit Committee, Director Jones.
Thank you, President Wood. The Finance and Audit Committee's next meeting is scheduled for March 27th, 5:30 p.m. in these quarters.
Thank you very much. Policy Committee, Director Costa.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Policy Committee met today reviewing an administrative policy on policy development and implementation. This policy was revised to reflect appropriate divisions and coordinating branch oversight, and then some additional language added to define board policy and administrative policy. And then the Policy Committee did discuss opportunities to assist staff on timeframes for the policy update. End of report. Our next meeting is April 10th.
Excellent. Moving on to board members' questions and comments. I'll start to my right with Director Stark. Director Clark.
No comment.
Director Jones.
We had a handful of items on our agenda, and each was incredibly important. And I wanted to thank all the presenters and participants and all the preparation that went into the presentation items. Thank you very much.
Director Sailors.
Ditto what she said.
And Director Costa.
And no comments. Thank you.
Director Weber.
I just want to congratulate Captain Nunez as well. Excuse me. I've had the privilege to work with, well, I think one of them, but I know all of the folks that work with you, that you've got a phenomenal team. So, and I know you've been doing this for quite a while as well. you're going to do exceptionally well with this because you have a great, great team behind you. So congrats to having that team.
Thank you. I just have a couple of comments. I want to echo what's already been said. I want to say thank you to the crew at 109. I think it was C Shift. They let me spend a Sunday afternoon with them a few weeks back, and it was enjoyed the conversation and the food with them. Also, Firefighters Burn Institute's got their cornhole tournament coming up on the 19th of April. All the information's on their website. Again, can't think of a better organization that we can support with our time and money when we can. So keep that in mind. And we're going to go into closed session now, and hopefully no one is here when we get back. Thank you very much. Council Opera, would you please report out?
Thank you, President Wood. All right, this is a report out from the closed session. Under item number 1 of the closed session agenda, Hazlet Vert in the Sacramento Metropolitan Fire District Workers' Compensation Settlement Authority. The board voted unanimously to give authority to its third-party administrator to effectuate a settlement of that claim. With respect to item number 2 on the closed session agenda, Jason Cahill in the Sacramento Metropolitan Fire District, there's no reportable action to report out from closed session. The board will take up the matter of the industrial disability retirement now in open session. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lavra. Do I have a motion on the item number 2, Jason Cahill?
Second.
I've got a motion, a second. Can we get the roll, please?
Yes. Director Sailors.
Aye.
Director Stark.
Aye.
Director Clark. Director Jones.
Aye.
Director Weber.
Aye.
Director Costa.
Aye.
President Wood.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Our next meeting will be on March 27th, 2025, 6 o'clock in this room. We'll see you then. Thank you.